You are now tuned in to the Jmack Experience Podcast.
All right, we're back, and we got a very, very special guest on the show today. I want to give you a round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Representative David Morales, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, Jmack. So glad we're making it happen.
Super excited. You got some amazing things going on, and you've been talking about some things that actually make sense. I want to start there, because a lot of times when people see like people who are running for mayor and stuff like that, like especially, for the minorities, we could say they're like, they ain't talking about nothing that relates to us, So it's great to see that you're here for the people. Mayor Morales, we're gonna call it now. We're gonna foresee it. Episode 118, the Jmack Experience Podcast. We're gonna get into the intro real quick, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Jmack Experience Podcast. This show is for motivational purposes only. However, we will not be politically correct, but our goal is to inspire those who listen and watch the show. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to follow us at the Jmack Experience Podcast and email us if you would like to be a guest on our platform at the Jmack Experience Podcast at gmail.com. Peace.
Once again, it's truly an honor. I gotta give you another round of applause, man, because this was long overdue. I seen you a few times, and one thing I'm gonna say before we start, your energy is always the same. It's crazy because sometimes you meet people one day that everybody has good and bad days, but like every time that I've seen you or ran into you, I'm like, not for nothing, electric energy, just great energy. So basically, I want to start from the very beginning because our goal here is a motivational platform. We want to inspire others, and maybe your story could inspire somebody out there who's undecided and they don't know what they want to do in life, right? So if they don't know, what's your name and where are you from?
So my name is David Morales, he, him, and I am originally from a small town in rural California called Soledad.
Okay. And growing up out there, more or less, like, how was it? Like, did you face any trials and tribulations, single parent household? What was life like growing up?
Absolutely. So my mom immigrated to the U.S. back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And she came here for the purposes, like many other immigrants.
Right.
Trying to find a better life for herself and the family that she would be able to help build.
Yeah.
So she worked in the fields for years at a time. Eventually, she gave birth to me and my older sister.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, relatively early on in my childhood, my dad experienced substance use disorder.
Oh, sorry.
He had alcoholism combined with, again, addiction to drugs.
Yeah.
And that led to him fleeing out to Mexico. So
Yeah.
he left my sister, my mom, and I when I was just 8.
Wow.
So I haven't seen him since then. And that being said, my mom had to work a multitude of jobs to be able to provide for my sister and I. And she always made sure that throughout the long nights that my sister and I felt cared and loved.
She held it down.
She held it down, man. And
That's
siempre dijo, vale la pena. It's worth the struggle.
Yeah, especially because at that point, and then you see that obviously builds character early on, right? So I know you're into wrestling. I got to get into that. Who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
Ooh, without question, Rey Mysterio.
No way. Hold on, I gotta do the drop. Oh man, where's my drop at? Rey Mysterio, that is fire. So you were watching him on TV, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, Friday Night SmackDown, man. Could not miss it.
That is so crazy. Like, so when do you start wrestling yourself? Because I know, for those out there who don't know, you're actually a wrestler, which I found very interesting. And I started seeing, I'm like, oh, snap, this is crazy. So did you start very young, or like maybe I'm going ahead too much?
Yes, I did a little bit of amateur wrestling throughout high school. I was not very skilled, to be truthful. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s
okay.
that
Gotcha.
I became affiliated with the Renegade Wrestling Alliance, a local wrestling promotion throughout Rhode Island. And they were hosting a show in Providence.
Yeah.
And at that time, I had already been a state representative for about a year and a half.
Wow, you started young. Hold on, wait a minute. So, hold on. I think we're going to. So, how did you? Let me backtrack a little bit. What made you want to come to Providence, Rhode Island, out of all places, right? Because California, I'm originally from New York. So, like, I obviously I fell in love when I came out here. My family's from here and stuff like that. I would come in the summers. But like, you go from California did you have family out here? Or like, how did you decide that you wanted to come to Providence is what I'm trying to get at. And
so I noted it earlier. My mom was very stringent on working a multitude of jobs to be able to provide for my sister and I. And she always told us it's worth the struggle, vale la pena, as long as you apply yourself to education.
Okay.
And so that said, I took a lot of night classes while I was in high school. So I was able to graduate from the University of California, Irvine with my bachelor's at the age of 19.
That's awesome.
And at that point in time, I had a decision to make as to what was next.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to go to graduate school because we don't have enough representation amongst Latinos within those that have their master's degree, their law degree, or any advanced degree for that matter.
Right.
So one of my mentors guided me to look at Brown University, specifically because he had spent a lot of time out in Providence. That's eventually what led me there. And I've been proud to call it home since then.
So instantly when you get to Providence, Rhode Island is where I want to go to. What did you fall in love with? Like in the very beginning, what did you like so much about? Because you come from California, California is a big state, big city.
I come from a small town.
Oh, small town.
I come from a very small town, predominantly Mexican immigrants with less than 20,000 people. And when I came to Providence, almost immediately, I felt that sense of community because neighbors knew one another. They cared for one another. And in of itself, each neighborhood is its own barrio.
Got you. All right. I like this. I like where this is going. Because you know what's funny? When I first moved out here, right? In New York, we have a lot of Mexicans, right? But out here, it's more, I felt like even the Jamaicans, we have a lot of Jamaicans, but out here they got the Cape Verdeans and then they got Guatemalans, but not a lot of Mexicans like that. You know what I mean?
That would be correct. And that's why I always say that one of the first places I landed in Providence was actually Casa Mexico on Atwells, right between Academy Avenue.
That's crazy.
And it was right then and there that I learned almost immediately that amongst our Latino community, Mexicans are by far not the majority.
Yeah. But you were like, you know what? It's a reason why I'm here because Casa de Mexico is like, all right, I need.
And they took good care of me, right? They took good care of me, and right then and there, like I was able to find community immediately.
Yeah,
and that's something that to me was just so special and stood out.
That's so crazy. So now you go to Brown University, right? What did you end up doing there, more or less? Like, what were you studying? And then,
I graduated with my master's in public affairs.
Okay.
And at that point in time, I became the youngest graduate from Brown's MPA program at the age of 20. And I ended up working at a middle school thereafter as a behavioral specialist, which I really enjoyed being able to connect directly with our youth.
That's awesome. The youngest ever in Brown University
For the MPA program, yes.
That is amazing. I gotta give you your props and your flowers, man. That's
Appreciate
what we do
that,
here,
Yeah, thank you.
Because sometimes you'll go, I don't want this to feel like an interview where I'm just asking you question after question. We gotta go through the whole thing. And I know that you can't speak on certain things and stuff like that. But so now when you're out here, you graduate, you say you ended up working as a behavior specialist, right? What leads you into going into politics is where I'm trying to get to. Right?
Oh, absolutely. So when I was in high school, I was a part of speech and debate.
Okay.
And I'll never forget the first topic we ever discussed was the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I was 16 years old and I did not necessarily know what the minimum wage was.
Yeah.
And almost immediately it clicked that, oh, wow, my mom's a minimum wage earner, which is why she has to work a multitude of jobs. Yeah. So I remember feeling so passionate during that debate saying we absolutely have a responsibility to raise the minimum wage. And that's when I put the pieces together. That government should and could be a force for good to help support working people. And thereafter, I wanted to get further involved around local government, around politics, because that's the way that you're able to achieve systemic change for a large group of community members. And so that led me to a lot of the work that I was doing throughout college, where I would be on the ground organizing with members of Sunrise, Rhode Island, the Working Families Party, those that were seeking change to ensure that there was housing that people could afford, to make sure that our neighbors weren't being poisoned by the amount of pollution and exposure coming out of the Port of Providence.
Yeah. So now at this time, you're wrestling still at this moment? You're doing both more or less?
No, I was actually, again, not involved in professional wrestling until I had already been in the state legislature.
Gotcha.
So I've always been a big wrestling fan. Again, I grew up watching Rey Mysterio, John Cena, Batista, Edge, Randy Orton, the peak of the ruthless aggression era.
Yeah.
And without question, it was
The Undertaker.
Of course, and The Undertaker. How can we forget him, right? You're going to go one-on-one with The Undertaker, player.
Oh, yeah.
And it was something that just always stuck with me because it was a memory that I hold very dearly in terms of spending time with my sister, watching Friday Night SmackDown, or spending time with my older cousins and bonding with them through that.
It was something like on your bucket list too, right? You're like, you know what? I got to do this eventually one day, right?
Well, that's what I said. When the Renegade Wrestling Alliance came to Mount Pleasant Little League, I was able to connect with them. And they offered me an opportunity to come and greet the crowd as a part of the show. The friendly state representative saying that they were really excited to have professional wrestling right in our backyard. And I'll never forget the promoter pitching me the idea of, what if our champion, who was a heel, that means bad guy, were to body slam you or insult you? And I said, absolutely, let's do it. So I ended up getting body slammed by the RWA champion at the time,
cool.
Kellen Thomas. And then that turned into a storyline in of itself, because what ended up happening that day is someone took a video and put the caption, "Local politician gets body slammed by professional wrestler." And it ended up doing numbers on YouTube, and RWA reached back out to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming back?" And I said, "Absolutely. Let's make a storyline out of this." And
you pretty much went viral, right? Well, that's
what it evolved into, right?
It evolved into that. Okay, I got you. Sorry to cut you off. Now, what happens from there? You come back again? Because you said they asked you to come back.
Yeah, so after that appearance, I started coming back. And at that point, right, I'm still more so not in a character per se, but still being the friendly state representative that enjoys professional wrestling.
Right.
But naturally, as a politician, there's a lot of folks that are generally skeptical.
Yeah.
So I would get booed.
Yeah.
And eventually I told the promoter, I should just turn into a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, if they're going to be booing me anyways, because they're already skeptical, might as well. So we ended up doing that. I ended up serving as the heel commissioner of the RWA for several years. Eventually, I won the RWA Hype Championship. And to your point, right, it was something very special to have been able to do. It is now add on to the fact that I am now a professional wrestler.
This is amazing. This goes to show everybody watching, never be afraid to, like, basically, if you have something on your mind that you want to do, just go for it, right? And just do it. Even if you have different walks of life and you might try this, you might try that. Eventually, you'll go towards, because now we got to lead to where you're at now, right? So this is, you know, you see the buildup that I'm going here. So you basically became, correct me if I'm wrong, the youngest state representative, more or less?
So I was 21 when I was first elected, and that made me the youngest Latino ever elected to any state legislature.
That is amazing. That's great. And how did that make you feel at that moment? You know, coming from humble beginnings, you know?
A lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of weight on one's shoulders, recognizing that not only are you representing our Latino community, but also the sense that we're representing what it looks like for young people to be in government. So throughout my 5 years at the State House, I've always been very diligent about going to committee hearings prepared, walking into the debate floor, knowing my facts, having counter arguments prepared. Because not only am I representing the working people of Mount Pleasant, Valley, and Elmhurst, I'm also representing a group of young people to be able to demonstrate this is what it looks like when we get directly involved in local government.
And there's a lot of pressure because, you know, they're looking for that one moment to be like, I told you so.
Absolutely.
He's not a good fit. This is why we don't let them in. That's crazy. I like that. That's a lot. That must be a lot for you, right? But you handle it well.
It certainly is, but I have a lot of support from the community. Yeah. That's what keeps me going. So earlier you were mentioning, right, like the level of energy. It's because I get that energy from our neighbors who tell me, hey, you may not know me, but I support the work that you're doing in the community. Keep it up. Got you.
So now, what inspired the decision of basically you deciding, you know what? I've been doing this for a few years now. I think it's time. I want to run for mayor. Was this something that you always envisioned, or it just happened as you grew into it, more or less?
So today, Providence is the least affordable city in America for renters.
Right.
We have watched as costs have skyrocketed for everyone, and it has led to a point where we have more and more working people and families that have called Providence home for years being pushed out. They're being priced out of the city that they love. And over the last 5 years as a state representative, that has been the most common phone call that I get from my neighbors. Someone's lease is up, and they just told me, my rent went up $400. I can no longer afford to live in Providence. Do you know of any apartments that might be more affordable? And more often than not, what ends up happening is I have a neighbor, I have a friend that is forced to move, whether it's to West Warwick, Woonsocket, or Pawtucket, because it's more affordable than Providence. So this is not sustainable. And I believe that with the right leadership out of the mayor's office, we could build a Providence for all.
That is amazing. Well said. This, you were born for this, man. I'm gonna be honest. Like, this is so dope. So let me ask you this, right? You generally speak about like fighting for the people, you know, especially renters. What's the biggest issue that you feel right now that City Hall has been ignoring? Like, what's the biggest issue you feel?
The biggest issue that we need to address right now is the escalating cost of rent. Yeah. We have watched as a 2-bedroom apartment in Providence goes for, on average, $2,200. Yet, the median household income for a working family is closer to $60,000. Yeah. And that's why I say that Providence is the least affordable city in America for renters, because the gap between wages and rents is much higher in our city compared to any other place in the country.
Right.
That is alarming. We need leadership that is prepared to say that we're going to stabilize the cost of rent, so no one has to worry about their rent going up by more than 4% on any given year.
I was going to speak about that. So the 4%, right? And it's actually one of my questions. Like basically, you've been speaking about that a lot. I've been seeing like on your, on your platform and stuff like that. Like what strategies will you use to enforce that, especially for like people who are like independent renters? You know what I mean? Would that apply to everybody is what I'm trying to ask? Or is it only to like certain, people who own properties?
So I'm really excited to see the work that's being done by the Providence City Council. Very soon, they'll be introducing a formal ordinance to pass rent stabilization. And then it's up to the mayor's office to enforce it.
Gotcha.
And a strategy very similar to what's being done right now in Portland, Maine, is to establish a rent board, a board that oversees the implementation to ensure that no one is cheating the system in raising a person's rent by more than 4% on a given year. Because a law is only as good as it is enforced.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. It's like basically if you get a slap on the wrist and you keep doing it again, then no one's following structure, then it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you. So I'm assuming that when you are elected, because again, we rooted for you here, is that the first thing that you want to tackle along with public transportation? Because me, when I first came out here, I'm a New Yorker. I was walking everywhere. I didn't have a car for like the first almost 6-7 years. I was taking RIPTA, taking a bus. People like, you still taking a bus? Like, yeah, I like public transportation, sometimes more convenient. And that's another battle that you're facing, right? What's going on with that for people who are not aware? Because some people, they just don't follow news, so
Absolutely.
We want to give them the ins and outs,
Well, first and foremost, public transportation is a public good.
Yeah.
It is designed to provide a service to all working people across our state, but especially in our city, where we are the capital city. And RIPTA is a state agency. And unfortunately, over the last several years, the governor's office has been divesting from RIPTA.
Okay.
And in my role as a state representative, I have been fighting to amend our state budget so we get further resources for RIPTA.
Gotcha.
Last year, we were able to stop some very brutal cuts that were being proposed. This year, however, there were a series of cuts that have impacted services. So in other words, working people today are now expected to wait for their bus longer than before. That's not right. So as mayor, one of my goals would be to ensure that we are pouring local resources and investments into RIPTA. Because right now, many cities and towns do not have a formal relationship with RIPTA as it relates to funding. We depend on the state to do it on their own. I think there's a responsibility as the capital city to say, this is what quality public transportation looks like.
That's so crazy that you say that, because I remember even when I first moved out here, there were certain bus lines, and this is not Sundays and holidays, because Sundays and holidays are a little slower, but like the bus taking like 45 minutes for the next bus. And you go to places like New York or other cities, there's a train or a bus that runs every 5 to 10 minutes, but that's not the case over here.
It's a lot more frequent and it's a lot more reliable, as you're noting.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, right now, RIPTA has been seen as an inconsistent service to certain folks, and it causes issues.
Yeah.
It causes real life issues because folks are getting late to work. You got students that are coming in late to school, and those are the consequences. And this is why I always go back to the fact that RIPTA, public transportation, is a public good. And it deserves investments.
We need it. I'm all for that, because even when I was going to a program in Newport, Rhode Island, and then the bus would only run once an hour too, and then it's like a 2-hour bus ride to get there. So
Exactly, and if you miss it, right, you're stuck waiting another hour.
You're late. I got you. So basically, in many cities, there's tension between encouraging development to build more housing and preserving existing neighborhoods. How would you balance development, gentrification, and community input? How would you do that when elected?
We have to be very thoughtful anytime new development is coming into our city. For example, I believe very strongly that any new housing development that's coming to Providence must incorporate some elements around affordability.
Right.
I get very tired of watching as the only new developments coming into Providence tend to be luxury studios and one-bedroom apartments that are clearly not designed for the working people that call Providence home.
Not at all.
And that in of itself is what leads to gentrification. That in of itself is what leads to the average cost of rent in our city continuing to increase.
Yeah.
And so we need to have laws in place that say if you want to obtain a building permit and build housing in Providence, there has to be affordability. And there has to be a diversification of the type of units that you're developing. We can't just have studios and one bedrooms. We need housing designed for families. We need 3-bedroom apartments. And we also need to be thoughtful about creating home ownership opportunities for the working people that call Providence home as well.
Yeah, it's true, because some of us, and let's be honest, it goes in our, how can I say it? Like basically our ancestors, right? some of our, I mean, at least for me, I have family that they've never owned anything. You know, they've just been renting. They
We
died in
lack
apartment.
generational wealth, right?
Right. So this is something that, like, I'm glad that you're like implementing this, and the goal is right for eventually for us to own something, right? I mean, that's the goal. You know, that's
Absolutely.
basically for
Government can play a role in making sure that that is done. We
yeah.
can make sure that moving forward, anytime homes are being sold in our city, that it is working people within Providence that have the first opportunity to buy.
Yeah.
Instead of the scenario we have now where you got working people that see a home that's for sale, and when they try to potentially be a buyer, they get outbid by an out of state corporation that's
Yeah.
coming in for the purposes of maximizing profit.
Yeah. And they're not even part of the community.
Exactly.
That's the crazy part about it. They're not from here. They don't care about the community most of the time. So I love this. So now you're going up against a mayor that we already have in office, obviously, who has a large fundraising advantage. Now, I did a little bit of research. How do you plan to overcome that gap? Because basically, you know, I was seeing that you don't take like any funding and stuff like that. Like, how do you plan to like overcome that? Because that's one of the biggest things that I was reading, that they're saying, well, you know, he has a large advantage in that department.
So I don't take any funding from corporate PACs.
Got
That would
you.
be correct.
Okay.
Because I believe that that is unfortunately what has led to government not being responsive to the needs of working people.
Got you.
Is when corporations are having a direct say around public policy through the means of influencing elected officials by donating to them.
I respect it.
And so my approach has always been around grassroots organizing. We
Yeah.
launched our campaign 3 weeks ago. And in that time, we have already knocked on over 2,000 doors.
Wow.
We have already signed up over 500 people from across our city to volunteer with us. We've raised close to $60,000. And again, all of this is a grassroots effort. People in our city want change, and they're opening up and saying, I want to be a part of this movement. I want to knock on doors. I want to donate. And we are welcoming that. So together, we're building out a movement. And that's a movement that between now and next year, we're going to send a very clear message to the political establishment that change is coming to Providence.
Oh, this is great. This is so, and I'm glad that we're watching it in real time, you know, because back in the day, we didn't have social media and all this stuff. So this is going to be amazing, the whole journey. Now, when you're elected, honestly, I keep saying, because I believe in you, I know you will overcome, you know, and we're rooting for you here. When you're elected, what will like your first year in office look like? And what would be your immediate priorities?
So as noted before, one of my immediate priorities would be having policies that stabilize the cost of rent. So I would want to make sure that we are working with the city council to pass the rent stabilization ordinance while at the same time having enforcement mechanisms in place.
Right.
Thereafter, I want to be in direct collaboration with the Providence School Board and the Providence Public School District to talk about how we safely staff all of our classrooms from elementary to middle school to high school.
Yeah.
Right now, we are watching as our students are suffering from a severe staffing shortage.
Yeah.
And there's also a crisis around mental health that is not being talked about nearly enough. I find it shameful that we have certain high schools with over 1,100 students, yet there are only 2 social workers for the entire school.
Yeah, that's insane, actually.
That status quo can't continue.
Yeah.
And I believe we have a responsibility as a city to work directly with families, with educators, with the school district, and thereafter the school board to determine how we safely staff our schools so every student feels supported, especially our multilingual learners and our special education learners.
Yeah, that's you know, because everybody's equal at the end of the day, right? And I feel like sometimes they'll prioritize certain things more than others. It should be more like balance. More
And
or
again,
less,
a
right?
lot of it's based on budgeting practices.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that when we're investing city funds towards our schools, that they're going back towards frontline staffing. We cannot take culture coordinators, behavioral specialists, social workers, and multilingual educators for granted.
Yeah, they're very important and crucial to the whole thing. Now, how will you ensure accountability and transparency at City Hall? Because as you said before, you can probably pass it and all this stuff, but it's not going to work as long as it's being enforced. Like, how would you, how are you going to plan more or less to make sure that that gets done?
So I will be a mayor that directly engages with the community. In the last 5 years as a state representative, I've been very proud to host monthly community meetings at our local libraries where I directly share what is happening at the State House. I answer questions, I receive feedback, and I intend to do the same thing as mayor. To be able to have open forums and community meetings, to hear directly from our neighbors as to what they're seeing on the ground in their streets, in their neighborhoods, while also being able to provide updates directly from City Hall.
And it's funny that you said you want to be directly with the community, because that was actually my next question. How do you plan to involve residents, including those who are not like traditionally aware, or like they're not, they don't follow government or anything that's in the news? Like basically you're going to be there firsthand, more or less, right? You're not going to get elected and then like, oh, we never see you again, Like, so,
Exactly.
yeah.
No, I intend to be directly engaged with community through the means of having public forums and community meetings that are open to everyone. And again, in non-traditional spaces as well. Yes, I want to have our meetings at local libraries, at rec centers, but I also want to show up at our local parks where we know our families are congregating. I want to be able to show up directly at some of our public schools and be able to have those opportunities where we can engage and have conversation while also having joy. I believe very strongly that when we bring community together, that's how we build stronger neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
That can look like community concerts happening in our local parks. Why not have a free wrestling show at our rec center every month where we're inviting community to come spend time with one another free of cost, where parents are able to allow their kids to be able to have access to entertainment that they otherwise wouldn't be exposed to.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is something different. It's a game changer too, because it's going to be like, our mayor did that. What's the other, who else is going to come and do that now? So let me ask you this, right? Being that we are the creative capital, right? What role do you think arts, culture, and community spaces play in your vision in Providence's future? Because you just mentioned the wrestling show at rec centers and stuff like that. What do you think about all that? Like, do you plan to include more, because a lot of community centers, sometimes they get shut down because there's no budget for it and stuff like that. Do you plan on keeping that alive, at least for the youth?
So my administration will fully support our local artists and entrepreneurs by expanding opportunities for our creative artists to come into our schools and be able to engage directly with the youth, to act as mentors, to have a residency program with our local libraries and our Providence housing authorities. We have so much untapped talent that the city should be taking full advantage of to be able to engage with. Some of this includes free community concerts, while also working with vacant commercial spaces to say this should be studio space. This could potentially be a community art gallery. There's so many opportunities that exist that through the office of the mayor, I would be excited to have a cabinet directly filled with artists where we're able to have conversations directly as to how we engage with community. And to be very clear, not just in downtown, but all across Providence, because all of our neighbors, regardless of zip code, deserve to be exposed to public art and public programming.
Yeah, give us something in Broad Street. Give us something on the West End. Give us something, it's true, because everything I've noticed, it's funny you mentioned that right now. You got me thinking, but it's always in downtown. Why we got to go downtown? We can't come to the hood a little bit?
No, let's have it in our backyard, to your point, right?
For real.
And there are a lot of organizations that are prepared to do the work and make it happen. We just need to make sure that we are actively empowering them to do so.
Man, I like it. Very well said. Now, what would you say, this is some advice that we want to give others too. Like, what would you say to young people who feel like politics doesn't represent them or their voice doesn't matter? Because that's a big one. A lot of people in our community, they're like, oh, I don't care about that. They're just going to do it doesn't matter if I vote.
That's a good point, Jmack, because oftentimes we do hear from young folks in particular that A, my vote doesn't count, and 2, politicians are going to do whatever they want anyways. So why should I care?
Right.
And my pitch has often been that at the local level, there is so much change that we can create.
Yeah.
Of course, we see all the craziness that's coming out of Washington, D.C., and we can feel powerless.
Yeah.
But right here in our backyard, we can help influence what our schools look like going forward into the future. We can help influence what public spaces look like and the investments that they receive from the city. There is so much that we can influence directly.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure that young people are a part of that process. And that looks like voting, going out to protests and rallies, showing up to committee hearings. It makes a difference, because more often than not, those that show up to committee hearings are usually paid lobbyists.
Right.
We don't have enough community represented in these spaces. And one of my goals as mayor is to open up City Hall in a way that makes government more accessible than ever, but most importantly, to be able to demonstrate to a lot of our neighbors that their ideas are being heard and are being acted upon.
And then you can't complain if you're not playing a part, right? Like we always complain, oh, can't do this, we can't do it. But did you vote? Did you show up? Did you come to those meetings?
And again, I don't blame anyone for being skeptical.
Yeah.
And I see it as one of the main goals of our campaign is to further engage young people into the political process, to help them recognize that at the local level, we can cap the annual cost of rent, that we can ensure that that intersection where you feel unsafe walking through because you feel like you might get hit by a car, we can have raised crosswalks that keep you safer. There are a lot of different tools that we can bring from City Hall, from the mayor's office, and it's our job. It's my job right now as a candidate to be able to demonstrate that.
I don't want to get a little off topic. It's funny you said crossing the street. This pothole situation? Because we got a lot of funny videos online and stuff. Providence has some of the worst, roads. Not for nothing. Like, do you plan on helping with that as well? Because not for nothing, my car's taking a beating every time I'm driving through certain places.
That's fair, yo.
Or is that a lot? That's like something out of your control. To be honest.
It is definitely something that the city can oversee and make the necessary investments to make those repairs. And again, to emphasize, all across the city.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of our neighbors in Silver Lake and Onlyville are feeling the stress
Yeah.
of watching some of the different potholes that exist, having their cars drive through them, and then not wanting to deal with the hassle of putting in a claim to the city.
Yeah.
So one of my goals would be to have an infrastructure bond where we are asking voters to go to the ballot and to give us permission to be able to borrow funds so we are able to make those repairs all across the city, not just concentrated in 1 or 2 zip codes, but all across our city, because there's a lot of work to be done around our crosswalks. There's a lot of work to be done around our sidewalks and, of course, road conditions.
I'm glad you said that. I'm going to be honest. I'm from Silver Lake, so this is right over. That's perfect. Yeah, because Onlyville, especially Onlyville, I have a few friends that their tire, their whole axle came off. There's some crazy bumps.
It's not sustainable, right? It's not sustainable, and we should not allow for that status quo to continue.
Absolutely. I know there's more important things, but that's one of them, especially people that are hardworking citizens, right? Sometimes we don't have the funds to be doing these repairs when it happens unexpectedly, right? So now, 5 years from now, what do you hope people will say about Mayor David Morales and the legacy you left behind?
I would want them to know that Mayor Morales was someone that was always very thoughtful around community feedback and would be responsive, and more so around the cost of living. That we would have a leadership team that is focused on addressing escalating rents, escalating property taxes, and that we were able to build a system that is a lot more equitable across the board. So we have working people that are able to continue calling Providence home. In other words, I want the working people that live in Providence today to still be able to afford to live in Providence 5 years from now.
Well said, man. Honestly, again, I'm going to say you were made for this, man. This is amazing.
Appreciate that, man.
I'm so inspired by you. I got to talk about this because this is something that's been going around the internet right now. And being that we are Latino, I want to know your take on. I want to know, I got to get a little spicy, a little controversial with it. But what's your take right now on, Bad Bunny doing the halftime show for the NFL? It's been causing a lot of controversy. What do you feel about that, being that you are Latino?
I'm excited.
You're excited?
It is very well deserved.
Yeah.
You have one of the highest grossing artists. You have one of the most successful artists who, again, happens to be Latino,
right?
Given the opportunity to perform at the Super Bowl.
So you don't feel like they're just going overboard with it, like all these antics that they're doing? Obviously, you feel how do you feel about that? No,
Bad Bunny deserves it. I don't see why this is up for debate. Bad Bunny deserves it.
Even the president,
putting up numbers. People again are unfortunately just hating.
Yeah, they hating. All right, we'll leave it at that. We don't want to stir up too much. Now, what advice would you give to someone who's watching this right now and maybe they're undecided on life and they think they want to become like a state representative one day? Maybe one of our Latinos. What would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
We all have a role to play in the movement. And a lot of that is dependent on your willingness to put yourself out there and advocate. Some of this can be tough. Yeah. It can be a lot to put your ideas out there because you might be afraid of being criticized.
Absolutely.
You might think that you may not know enough. But our voices are so powerful, especially when we organize amongst community. So I would encourage all of our neighbors, especially our young people, especially our Latinos, to get engaged, to become involved, whether that's through the means of volunteering, being a part of a community organization, or running for office yourself.
Beautiful. We're going to get into Album of the Week real quick.
Album of the Week on the Jmack Experience Podcast.
Album of the Week this week is Infinite by Mobb Deep. Are you a hip-hop fan? What kind of music you into?
I am.
Yeah.
Grew up listening to MF Doom, baby.
Yo, that is great. He's for the people. Let's go. We need this. Movie of the Week
on the Jmack Experience Podcast.
Movie of the Week this week is Tron. Are you a movie guy? Into movies?
I love my Spider-Man 1 through 3 Sam Raimi universe,
You know what I'm leading to right now, because Showcase Cinemas, I just read this. They're saying that they plan on leaving the mall. What's your take on that? Oh, Providence Mall in general. They're saying there's no funding. And that's a big, when people think of Providence, right? They think of Providence Place Mall. Anything that you could do maybe to save the situation of the mall in general? Or?
No, absolutely. So to your point, right now we're in a situation where Showcase Cinemas has said that they're not going to renew their lease.
Yeah.
I believe very strongly that we will be able to have another entity that will be able to take over the theater. So I believe that Providence Place Mall will still have the capacity to show movies come January.
All right. I like it.
Now, in terms of the mall as a whole,
it's
important to note that the mall is currently for sale.
Yeah.
So the last owner was not making their payments. But I want to be clear, it's not because people do not go to the mall or the mall doesn't drive revenue. Because we actually have a very active mall. You all know this. If you drop by Providence Place Mall on any given weekday,
packed.
Always busy. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the mall is a very important service and entity to our city.
Absolutely.
And as a large part of that, I want to make sure that as there's new ownership coming in, that we build more space for community to be a part of it. So it's not just necessarily big box retailers, but who's to say that we can't use some of that vacant space to be able to have community art galleries, to be able to have studio spaces. I think there's a lot of creative ways to start looking at what the mall looks like in the future. And a lot of that can be accomplished through the mayor's office.
I'm not going to lie, man. The mall is like my favorite place in Providence. When I first moved out here, I would walk to the mall. I used to live like off of Cranston Street. I'd be walking to the mall all the time. Like, it's my favorite. I used to go to the Apple store. Like, we got to save the mall, man. Because, I know the now everything's going digital and online, but
again, Providence Place Mall is holding strong.
It's holding strong, right? There's still hope. I like it. Now, we're going to be wrapping it up shortly. I know we spoke about a lot of things today. What's next for Mayor Morales? Anything that you want to promote? Anything that I didn't cover or I might have missed? Is your chance right now to...
Absolutely. So over the next year, our campaign is going to be on the ground, connecting with neighbors all across Providence.
Got you.
So if you have any interest in being a part of our grassroots movement, please go to davidmoralespvd.com, sign up to volunteer, host a house party for us. We would love to be able to get to know you and your neighbors more and more. Yeah. And at the same time, I'm also available on social media across every platform at David Morales PVD.
I love it, man. Can people reach out to you? I know you just said that right now, more or less, but let's say if people want to collaborate with you or for you to show up for certain events, small businesses we're talking about, right? Yep. Are you open to that or
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're all for it.
All for it. Again, if it's community and it's being organized, I want to be there.
And it's positive, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how we met, right?
Yeah,
Remy TV Awards.
Yeah, that's a fact. One of the best things ever. Like when I seen you there, it was like, again, I think that's the first time we actually met. Yes. And I was like, and then I seen you again at another event with Chris. What was that? It was the Fresh Farm Market, I believe.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
And the same thing again. It's amazing, man. Now, can we agree that all the experiences that you went through in life got you to where you are today?
Absolutely. I think lived experience is what has helped inspire me and motivate to the work that I'm doing now.
I love it. Any advice out there for those who may be experiencing the same situations you went through or are going through now?
I think it's always important to remember that our lived experience helps shape who we are. And it also helps bring more knowledge as to what decisions we make in the future. So I say all that because hardships are unfortunately a part of the experience.
Yeah. Tough. I love this. This is awesome. Any last words or special shout outs before we sign off?
Yeah, I just want to give and show all my love to the creative artists that we have across Providence and in our state, such as Jmack. My man, it's been a pleasure to be on here. Thank you so much for the invitation. One time for the one time. I'm
excited. I'm so excited. Shout outs to, because I know we got David Morales, state representative, but we listen. I know it's gonna happen. Mayor Morales, we're gonna speak it now. And when it happens, can we come back? Can you
Absolutely.
come back? Can we come back and do another one?
Yes, we will.
Y'all heard it here first. Y'all got an exclusive. Episode 118, Mayor Morales, the Jmack Experience Podcast. Shout outs to our sponsors, Black Sheep CMOS, Vitamin Energy, Space Style Snacks, and shout outs to Conversation Studio. Make sure you hit them up to get your podcast on. Wonderful people. We're signing out. You already know what it is.
Peace.
Thanks for coming on the Jmack Experience Podcast. Be sure to come on for another episode every single week. Until next time, peace.
Yo, if y'all want to submit your music, right? Make sure you submit your music to the Jmack Experience Podcast at gmail.com. We're going to do something different this year. Submit your music. We're going to do, how about this? I'm going to start doing something crazy. Since we're always booked up, whoever got the dopest track that you email, whoever got the most fire track, I'm gonna bump you ahead of my schedule. Instead of you having to wait, you know, whenever I got an availability and stuff like that, I'm gonna bump your spot and you're gonna be able to come on the week of if you got some motherfucking fire. But the track gotta be fire. It can't be no fucking bullshit. It gotta be, yo, bars. You know what I'm saying? That's the shit I like. I don't wanna hear none of this shit. I don't know what the fuck you talking about. But I wanna hear some straight bars. If you got something crazy, lyrical, some shit you could feel, we gonna bring the real shit back. You know what I mean? Which is coming back. But yeah, email that shit to the Jmack Experience Podcast. Send your music in. And I'm going to be the judge. And I'm going to see if this shit's fire. If it's fire, we're going to premiere it. We're going to get you on the podcast ASAP. So make sure you send them tracks. We're doing something new this year. And I want to know, you know, put a little, you know, when you submit the email, though, put where you're from, what's your name, what's your Instagram handle. You should already know how to do all this, but I'm going to just put you on. Don't just send me a track one, you know what I mean? Like, make sure the shit's labeled, make sure it got your information, make sure if there's a link to the music video, I can go check the music video out, because I might just stream that shit live and just, you know what I'm saying, give you some love. So make sure y'all tapped in. We doing something different, new music reviews. You already know what it is, man. The Jmack Experience Pop.